industry, it's usually talked about regards to security is your code. It's all about code, security, everything like that. But actually, there's a big piece here that everyone overlooks, which is your actual CI/CD / your DevOps platform itself being compromised by hackers and taking over control or intercepting and getting into the back end and accessing your code that way to access your Git repositories or your pipelines that way. What we're going to be covering today will be how to set up auditing, the benefits of auditing, why do we do auditing, how to connect it, and how we can review and actually implement automation around the auditing side. Rather than just auditing for the sake of auditing, actually can we do stuff with the auditing of data, and what can we do? So a bit of background about myself. So I'm a DevOps lead at a prop tech company called Coyote Software. I'm in charge of all development operations, and that's all with regards to the platform, the cloud architecture, and DevOps practices and culture. I've got over a decade of experience in the cloud, not just specifically Azure, but Google Cloud, as well as AWS. I've worked in EdTech, FinTech, PropTech, so those type of industries. I spent about over 8 years in EdTech. Yeah, that's most of my experience in both that industry, but FinTech and PropTech have been the others that have dominated my career. I'm Microsoft MVP in Azure specifically, as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. I specialize in HashiCorp products such as Terraform, Vault. So I'm an ambassador for them in regards to those technologies. And yes, I go on the road and talk about all these things, and actually security behind DevOps, which gets overlooked quite a bit with companies, especially with execs, looking at the technology stack, rather than natural culture and the security perspective of things. I'm going to bring this up here. This is what I bring up quite often at events, and it's by Snike. It's a nice little diagram. And what a lot of companies have done over the past few years is making a development approach by shifting right, so making development work doing more stuff in regards to the cloud. So rather than just working on the code and that's it, and chucking it over the wall, what has been happening is it's been encouraging developers to actually build their own tests, deploy their own code, and actually implement monitoring themselves. With that approach, what's happened is security does fall behind. What we should be doing when we do shift right with development, security should be shifting left at the same time, being more secure in regards to all the way back to code commit. So before we commit code, actually scanning for security-wise. And this is what's been missed off quite a bit in a lot of companies. But I do like this diagram. This is something I usually share with people and go, look, this is what we should be doing in the industry. And what I do say is code security is as vital as platform security. A lot of focus is on, your code is got no security holes, that everything's up to date, there's nothing vulnerable in the code. The problem is, that if your code, you can have the most safest code possible, and you then check it into a Git, which then is as unsecure as possible, where SSH keys are being shared, it's public, passwords are shared across teams, and it's not as secure, then your code becomes as vulnerable as your platform. So what do we do about platform security? Actually, we talk about the why first. So the why. Why do we talk about platform security? So there's 6 areas I like to talk about, the reasons why. Source code leaks, identity theft, social engineering, code injection, Trojan source, which is a terminology that we'll talk about in a bit, and supply chain hack. These are 6 types of thefts into your DevOps platforms that can happen just from the platform security level. A lot of this can be also code, but these areas can also happen if your platform is not as secure either. Supply chain hack is probably one of the most common ones that's always coming up in regards to media at the moment. And these are some examples. I don't know if anyone's heard of any of these 3 hacks that happened over the last 3 years. So we got the Amazon Twitch source code leak. So what happened with that was someone got access to the repo, was able to take a copy of it, and then open source it via via a torrent website. So you could just download the whole Twitch platform and actually utilize it. Big companies like Microsoft and that say, oh yeah, we won't look at it. We'll be good boys and girls and not look at it. But you know that's going to be looked at and utilized for their own platforms, especially the likes of Google, YouTube and that. So that was one big leak that ended up impacting the company massively. Social engineering and identity-centric attacks. So this one was Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Samsung. So their source codes were infected by someone putting in a backdoor into the source code, and that was quite a big issue. And basically, again, they took parts of their source code and made it open source via torrent websites. And then the big one, which was SolarWinds, which was just after COVID. And SolarWinds hack, was a just tremendous one. Yeah, that was very impactful. And again, yeah, the DevOps platforms weren't up to scratch. Yeah, just too many people utilizing it and not putting into those practices. So those are examples of why we have to be very cautious in regards to what we do, in regards to not just code, but also our DevOps platform. So Azure DevOps is what we're primarily talking about today, but these things are replicable in regards to discussion points. Yeah, I've talked about this topic in regard, as well in GitHub. So these are relatable. So Azure DevOps has got features already. So we've got authorization, so we can put on multi-factor authentication. We've got application and connection policies, so they're quite handy. User policies, we can say, yeah, users can't access this, can't access that, can do this, can do that. Repository policies, we can say, yeah, you can't check into a branch here without it being code committed and so on. So it's like, okay, well, we're putting all these policies in place as well as access permissions. So is that enough? If you do all that, that should mean that only authorized people can have access to the code. Well, one of the problems we know for a fact is people's accounts get compromised. I've actually had a conversation with someone only a couple of weeks ago where they opened up a PDF document, and what happened was it took their session keys from their browser, and you didn't need MFA prompting. So what happened was the person was able to open up the browser with their session, which meant that they could access everything here as that session was already authenticated with MFA. So these things can not just be enough. So how do we improve the security? If we already put on authorization and MFA and we've done all the user policies, what else can we do? Well, like I say, we're talking today, I'm talking here today about auditing logs, and that's something, yeah, it's not a prevention method, but it's more of a monitoring method to be able to identify these risks happening as they are going to happen live. So what we can do is enable auditing logs and review logs. We can just sit there and just look at the logs. And I bet a lot of security teams love sitting there and looking at security logs. Yeah, they just sit there and watch them. What we can do is just enable it, just a little toggle and enable. What you need is with Azure DevOps is Azure AD integrated. You need to enable Azure AD integration. If you don't do that, you can't have auditing logs. So that's one thing you need to consider. But once you integrate Azure AD to Azure DevOps, which most people have done now, you can then enable auditing logs. So what we do here is all you have to do is go to organization settings. You'll see auditing. And in here is your audit logs. If you want to enable it, all you got to do is go to policies and just enable log audit events there. So that's off, that's turned on. Yeah. No, so what it means is I don't know why Microsoft does it. I think it's the same to do with the licensing behind it. But if you have guest users, which you can enable, which I have here, external guest users, when they go onto invited into the organization or access a repo, you can actually check the logs through them as well. It says where their source is coming from, even if they don't use Azure AD accounts to log into Azure DevOps. If they use something like a Google account or just a standalone account, it will just still show up here with their identity through there. It'd be their name and email address that will show up. No, it's on the free Azure AD. I do not know why they do it. It weren't like this before, and they last year introduced it, but there's no it says, oh, we don't need licensing for it, but we need you to connect to Azure AD. They're doing something with it. I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, so it enables auditing, and then you can go through the auditing logs and actually see what's going on in regards to everything in here. So yeah, I can manually go through this and just export the log. I can export it as CSV JSON and just run through the logs nice like that and just work through it like this. But that's not nice. Why do that? That's pointless. We can do more. We can do so much more with just those logs. So we can enable streaming audit logs. So this is a feature within the tab up here, and we can enable streams. There's 3 types of stream locations. We can stream these logs to Event Grid. So has anyone used Event Grid here, Azure Event Grid? Yep. So you can use Event Grid, which will then trigger based on, you can just have it trigger certain events and everything. The most common one, Azure Monitor Logs, which is Log Analytics. Anyone using Azure Log Analytics? Yep, a few people. So Azure Log Analytics is where you can just dump all your logs into it and then use a login parameter KQL to actually review the logs. So that's the most common one. And Splunk, which is a third-party tool. So has anyone used Splunk? Yep. So you can connect it straight to Splunk. So we won't show Splunk today. There's a resource at the end of this PowerPoint where you can see a live demo of Splunk integration from me. But yeah, you can integrate this with Splunk and do very fancy stuff with Splunk. So what we're doing is, as part of this session, we'll be doing an integration with Azure Monitor Logs, which is Azure Log Analytics. I don't know why they haven't updated the name convention. So what we do is, when you want to integrate an Azure Log Analytics, you select it under the new stream and Azure Monitor Logs. It will ask you for your log workspace ID and your logs shared key. So, and I do have masking on. Yeah, cool. Within your log analytics workspace, you should be able to go into, and I find it easier just to go to agents. Yeah. Yeah, AZ Mask. AZ Mask. It's no longer on the marketplace. So it's on GitHub. So you can just type in AZ Mask and you can get it from there. But you toggle it on, and then what it does is blurs everything. So what you can do is, yeah, so basically it's like been programmed already, and the open source community is still updating it for example, this is all blurred out. So these are my keys. So my workspace ID. So what I can do is take a copy of that, paste it into here, and then take the primary or secondary key, depending on your choice, and put it into the shared key. Once you do that and click set up, it will then create the entry like here. Once that's connected, what I can do then is go into my logs. And what I can do is, we'll just run this one I ran recently. There you go. So I can run, we just do this. It should show up all my logs. Should do. There we go, that's all my logs. So once that's all connected, you can go into the logs here. So this is exactly the same as this. No difference. So I can see all my logs in here. Okay, brilliant. So I was able to move my logs from one place to another. Okay, I'm just reading in a different window. What you can do with log analytics is you can actually filter, and you can do a little bit more in regards to searching for certain objects, certain values, looking for a specific user. What you can't do at the moment in here is, if we go into filter, you can't really do much of an advanced filtering. It's just dates and times. That's all you get. So what you can do with log analytics is actually filter by users, event types, so on and so forth. Okay, so I can obviously start investigating specific users. No, so the language is KQL, and it's just basically filters through that. But we just plonk all the data onto log analytics. It's like a storage account basically. It's just it dumps it there, and that's all it does. And it keeps data for, I think, forever, really. I think you can set a date to eject it, but yeah, it's pretty much forever, if not. So it will just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's it. So yeah, I can just use KQL, the language, to start filtering through the data manually and just working out what I want to do. So I could do an investigation on the user, which has been a historic thing in companies where they have to check what a user has been doing in regards to auditing purposes, like changing settings. But again, this is quite manual work, investigating, looking at possible threats. Again, why do we do that? It's not reactive. It's more reactive than proactive. We're looking at things rather than things coming to us and we've detected something live. So what can we do? So we can connect it to our SIEM product. So does everyone know what a SIEM is? So it's a security information and event management system. I think that was the I stands for. I always get it wrong. So what it is basically is it's a security platform that most large to medium-sized organizations introduce, and these can be the likes of Microsoft Sentinel. I'm trying to remember the other ones, but I can't remember them off the top of my head because I've done so much Microsoft Sentinel recently. But the idea of these products is that they have all these. This product will then, like SIEM, will connect to these data sources, so like a log analytics, and accesses the data. But these SIEM products have built-in features like workbooks or event triggers or incident management, where it will monitor the data source for incoming logs and then trigger based on a specific type of event. And again, some of these are predefined, so you can actually say, I would like you to monitor when a secret has been put into a variable unmasked, so it's visible to anyone that clicks on the variable group. So you can have something like that, because that's a security thing that we don't want people seeing secrets, just via the GUI. Or you can have it where someone has given themselves admin rights, given someone else admin rights external from the company. So you can have these events monitored, and this SIEM product can then action something. So what we're going to do is have a look at my SIEM. So that's my nice little SIEM here. And there's been 2 new events at 5 o'clock this morning. So someone's up early doing something. I want to see what those 2 events are. And those 2 events are high and medium priority, and they both have the title of Azure DevOps in them. Okay, let's have a look, see what happened. Let's look at the high one. So I clicked on it, and this is predefined. I haven't done anything. I just click enable, and I'll show you how that works. But this top one is Azure DevOps agent pool created, then deleted. That's quite high, because what that would indicate is that there's suspicious behavior going on in my platform, and a agent pool being created could be that someone's created a custom pool and basically had their own agent put in for jobs to run through and maybe grabbing information. Could be anything like that. So that's quite classed as a high priority. It says there was 1 event from it. What we can do is click the 1 event, and it does the query and shows me what it did. So it tells me the user agent, so it says Mac, give me the IP address, the user that did it, who created it, by IP address, my user auth token, so on and so forth, and it just gives me loads of information that I can utilize, timestamps. So that's brilliant. And in a SIEM product, what you can do is click view full details like this. And what I can do is get a nice GUI of it, rather than it just looking at the KQL version of it. So what I can do is then review why the tactics and techniques. So if I think it's a false positive, do I need to tune it? And it tells me it's in the defense evasion, and it's in the T1578 policy, so I can just amend it, make it custom rather than from the library, and just amend it a little bit. And then, because of it being a SIEM product, I can just assign it to someone to look into it, and I can start working on actioning work, find out what's going on. Do I need to disable the user? I can do all this by looking at this now, going, okay, I can make actions based on the information that I am given. So that's one incident. Another incident is a variable secret not secured. So this is quite handy because this, again, could come into effect of good practice. So I could have myself here monitoring good practices where security libraries, secret libraries should be always non-viewable. So it should be secured. So there's a little padlock symbol. You should click that and it should not show the password on GUI. If someone's then leaving it off and the password's on show, that's bad practice. Anyone can go in and have a look at the password. So I could have something that alerts me that something has happened. So here, what we're going to do is have a look and see where the secret is. So if we look at the event, here we go. So it's a variable group named My Secrets. If we go across, should be able to see. So it tells me the organization. So if you have multiple organizations in Azure DevOps, so you big MSPs may support multiple Azure DevOps and have the central SIEM on their side. So that's why we have our scope. And it tells me the project. There we go. So it tells me it's in MS DevOps London 23, and the variable group is My Secrets. So if we go into Azure DevOps, MS DevOps London 23, and then what I'm just going to quickly do is go into my variable library, My Secrets. Oh yeah, there's a password that says hello 123. Okay, that's meant to be padlocked. So it alerts me on that. That's pretty good, and I can go in and change it and find out which user it was and smack them on the hand and telling me not to do that again. Brilliant. And then I can just, on my SIEM product, depending on the SIEM product you got, you can just quickly just go and close it off. There we go. So I can just go close it off. Yep. It's not the variable group, it was actually the secret itself. So basically, this policy, so if we have a look at this policy itself, if we go back, and if we go into, scroll's not working. There we go. There we go. So this is the policy. And what it's doing is it's looking for words, secret, secrets, password, password, PSWD, PSWD, which if we go into the library, PWD is one of them. So it's basically look for that match PWD. So you can start building up a list of common things. So if you know your organization uses quite a variant of names here for secrets, you can just add it to there. So yeah, what you can do is then do that and then be proactive in regards to triggering it. It's not because of our name, it's because of that name, basically, and looked at that. So you can start building up lists. There's actually GitHub repos with massive customizations in regards to the list and list of common things that could come up here in your DevOps. So yeah, so we can do that. Again, okay, so we've been a little bit more, we've got a little bit more visibility. We actually have predefined rules. So if we go into hunting, this is a terminology of looking into log analytic data. And what we can do is, taking a while, let's just do that. There we go. We have some gallery content, so we can actually look at public project enabled by admin. So we can look at that. So something's been made public. So we can actually use these rules and actually start looking into things. Pull request policy bypassing. So if someone bypasses their pull request to actually merge something into the main branch, which project admins are known to do, which they shouldn't be doing, but yeah, they do. Guest user access enabled. So you might have an organization policy saying no one is allowed access. So we disable it. But if someone goes in and enables it, you can get you can look at the audit history. So you've got values type of policies, and these are easily run. You can just click run query and you see it. So we've got that, but now what do we do with the data? We can, obviously we're going to get alerted by incidents. So, okay, but I don't want to be living in my SIEM product. That's the security team. Or it might be something that you don't want to keep going to regularly. It might be, I set it up once, off it goes to the left. I just want to be alerted, or I want things to happen for me when these things occur. So you can set up automation in using log analytics. And your SIEM product itself, so like Splunk, it can trigger based on logged events. So the example with Splunk would be that you can have it when that event triggers, drop you a text message or ring you with an automated call. You can have it send you an email, so on and so forth. Same thing with Microsoft Sentinel. You can have it just trigger an email or an alert or Teams. And very nice notifications to be alerted when something happens. What about remediation? Well, we'd like we've seen in the logs, we get user ID for an event. What we could do is say, with using logic apps, is when an event like this happens, grab the user ID and block the user automatically. Just block it and then send an email for you to then action. That's pretty clever. That's smart to do. Block a user when something suspicious is happening, while then waiting for you. Because again, we don't work 24 hours a day. It could be happening at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, you've gone to bed. Email comes through. You're not going to look at it till the morning. You want something to happen overnight. There you go. So you can do things like that. And it does like incident creations, like I showed you in the instance here. What I can show you is the logic apps. So does people know what a logic app is? Yeah. So a logic app, for those who don't know, is a sequence of steps that are taken and you can program them. So you can either use the JSON view or you can actually use the GUI, which I'll show you the GUI, to say which steps to take when an event happens. So I'm going to show you some examples I've had, and some of them are GitHub related. So I do apologize about that, but this one is a GitHub one, and I think this one's quite a good one because it's actually not public, it's not accessible publicly. It's my own custom one. So this one is an event here when code has a package has become vulnerable and you've got it in your organization. So when that happens and that package is now out of date, and it will then trigger the log. And what will happen is we can get all the information, create an instance, and update the comments with all the details. So it's just a nice little path. That's all it does. That's basic, but it gets all the information to the security team to say this is now now a vulnerable package. They need to update it to this version, and it gives the security team oversight to say, has this been actioned? Straightforward. That's a nice one. This one, yeah, not that one, because that one's not working. There you go, that trigger. This one's basic. When the incident happens, alert me, get the incident details and alert me in Teams. So Teams is quite a good one. You can do it in Teams or Slack or whatever your communications platform is using webhooks. But having it rather than in an email with your thousands of emails you get a day, having it in your communications platform like Teams or Slack, you can have more than one set of eyes on it, and you can actually comment and work on it together in that window. So you can do that. Remediation, like I say, I haven't got an example on that at the moment, but you can do. Well, actually, this might be an example. Let's have a look. No, that won't be an example. So you can have an example where it grabs the user ID and actually go to DevOps with the API again, block this username. So it's just using the APIs, fill in the username field as a variable taken from the log to then block the user. You can have it change a repository that's changed to public, tell it to change it back to private. So you can have remediation go switch it back to private until you action it. And then if they are legit, things like making a repo public because the company's decided that they're going to make this open source, you can then adjust your rules and say, stop monitoring this specific repo as public. It's fine to be public, just leave it. So you can just start adjusting things, yeah, with the rules in your SIEM product. So you can say your SIEM can then just action it. You can tell, say, ignore this log when it happens, and then your SIEM, it won't go into your SIEM and bugger up everything here with your logs. So, is there any questions at this point? Yes. Mm-hmm. So are you saying if it happens multiple times, or? Yeah. Hmm. You do. Yeah, it's not public. It is private. Yeah, it'd be secure and everything in regards to that. So yeah, um, maybe I'll take that away and talk to you about it afterwards. Um, it shouldn't be a problem. No, I'll talk to you afterwards. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, not many people use it anymore, but I know a few companies that still use it. Um, there's there's a lot of there's not a lot of reasons why now to put it all in the cloud. There's very minimal reasons. Some of them are because of the organization type, like governments, where they don't want it in the cloud, but they have their own cloud version now of government entities that have that hosted in the cloud in their own versions. But most of it is that reason. If you have an on-prem thing, like it says, there's an Azure DevOps on-prem version, but it's not as up to date as the cloud version. You can do auditing on it, but it's yeah, you would have to implement like a private network type, a VPN, yeah, connection to the log analytics that way to keep it secure. Um, when these logs are being transmitted from the cloud version to log analytics, they through a secure channel. It's all on the Azure network. Yeah, it doesn't go off anywhere. If you say, oh yeah, I want to go to Splunk, yeah, but it does leave out over to the internet, but it's all in secure encrypted traffic. Yeah, there's a couple of docs here I put in the resources that tells you how secure the data is when it's transmitted and everything in regards to that. But yeah, there's an on-prem version of Azure DevOps and you should be able to do all the same. So yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so like most themes, yeah, but you be able to action stuff. I find with Microsoft Sentinel, because it's native to Azure, there's quite a bit of actions like log analytics, logic apps you can do. So for example, instance, to go into this one, because I've closed that one. Yeah, you can just click instant actions and I can tell it to run automations. So I can have all my logic apps already all queued up, ready for any type of instance. And there could be one for blocking users. So while they've been automated remediation, I could actually have a manual remediation and have it go, okay, what I want to do is run a playbook. They call it playbook for those logic apps. As you can see, it still says preview. So I would imagine it was changed the name back to logic apps, but you run your logic app and it will just execute the workbook and off it goes and does what it needs to do. If the logic app requires some parameters, so you might have something like username, what it will do is take it from your current incident, or you can have it on the logic app as a prompt. So when you run it, you just have to go into the logic app and just go to that run and just input anything that needs to be inputted. That's a very rare case. I've not seen that yet. Sentinel is Sentinel is not expensive, depending on how much logs you ingest. So that's what they charge you mostly on in regards to it. If you're just in Azure DevOps for your organization, which I have done, it is very cheap in comparison to any other SIEM product that you can get on the market. If you do use something like Splunk, you are charged, again, per the data ingested. So you'll be charged for that. So yeah, it's depending on how much login data you're bringing in to it. If you've got a SIEM product already that's just got storage, and you put Azure DevOps on it, it won't be as much data. I had this question last year at another event, but the difference was they were an MSP. So they literally were talking about all their customers going into one log analytics. And again, that's completely different question, because it's like, that's a lot of data. I was like, that will cost a lot of money. But if it's just one organization and you work, it's not, the cost of it is very minimal. Yeah, so you get charged for the storage on log analytics, don't you? So like I say, the data we are from Azure DevOps is telling it to go to log analytics, and Sentinel is looking at the data. So when that gets logged into log analytics, SIEM, this Sentinel is actually looking at that data live as well. So it's just screening it. So if you're logging 5 gigabytes of data a day, SIEM is processing 5 gigabytes of data a day. And then if it's going to take actions and do stuff, yeah, it's going to charge you for action in those. But again, it's very little. Microsoft does have a free trial of, they call it a review period, of I think it's 30 days. The great thing is, if you want to try it out, do it, because it tells you how much it's going to cost. So as soon as day one, of signing up to your preview of Sentinel, look, attach your Azure DevOps straight away. Just let it review everything, and then you get a good cost analysis. Don't do it when you're still learning how to use Sentinel and trying to work with DevOps. I've had I've known someone who set up Sentinel but didn't have access to the DevOps admin until 25 days later, and then lost the preview. But that's fine, because you can go off and speak to the account manager, but it's a bit more effort than day one. So, any other questions? So, like I say, this bit of automation and remediation can be done in other platforms like Splunk. There's also other platforms that can do this type of remediation. It's something special. The most important bit is the data source. Having that data coming from Azure DevOps out of Azure DevOps into a data source like log analytics, and connecting that with a SIEM product to then action. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a list of keywords, that one is. So keywords, yeah, so if you have something. Yeah. 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 Yeah, so Azure DevOps does, Azure DevOps don't have that natively inside of it, blocking like those things. You can see it in the, if we go into policies. Back into organizations, policies. You don't get many features in regards to what you can do in regards to like blocking, like certain keys being put in like that. Like GitHub, you can tell it, or it will automatically do it for you. Azure DevOps don't do that, but you can set up a rule in Sentinel where a log event, where it's like, if the value is this, but if you're then pushing the padlock to hide that value, it's not going to log it in the log events, because it's going to go, I can't see that because it's blanked out. I'm not allowed to log it in the audit events. But if you have it on show, like the URL or the key, whatever, you can have a script to say, oh yeah, if it's in this type of format, then trigger. But then if it's like that, then you've got two things of an issue. One, someone's not hiding the passwords, which is then logging it in the audit logs. When you're logging stuff in audit logs, a lot of security teams hate it. And when that happens, they give you a call and say, no, you got to reset it because you can't be in the logs. You can't have passwords in the logs. I used to work in fintech companies, and yeah, they don't like it in the logs. You have passwords showing that it has to be blanked out. So, but yeah, you can train it. It's not AI or anything, but you can tell the log analytics the rules and everything to say, yeah, but it needs to be in this format or something like that. Yeah, if you see something in this format, then raise an alarm and let us know. But if you hide it, no one's going to see it. It's not going to be in the events. It can't be triggered. Then it will have to be by the name of the variable. But yeah, you can customize this a lot. There's a GitHub repo that you can access with example rules that people have done, and you can create dashboards out of this as well. I do actually show you a dashboard quickly. If it's still, it won't show up any logs because my GitHub hasn't triggered any events in the last 48 hours. But you can create like members added or removed type queries, so you can have like little dashboards and everything. So you can have like create custom policies and everything like that, and have them visible in dashboards and everything for that purpose. So, well, last time I used GitHub for this example was a year ago, and I can now go back the last 90 days. So, by Azure DevOps, I have not set up a dashboard yet. So, any other questions? No? Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, that's just been. Mm. Yeah, there's also Microsoft Defender for Azure DevOps now as well. So that was announced in the last 6 months. Same thing with the GitHub, yeah, advanced security, yeah, that you can now do some more stuff in Azure DevOps, but it's very limited because they want people using GitHub at the moment. Even though Azure DevOps is not being deprecated or anything, it's just one of those things, yeah, GitHub's getting the latest and greatest first. So yeah, you can probably do a few more bits. Microsoft Defender for this type of stuff does predefined detection, whereas this does a little bit more in-depth. You can do with your SIEM provider and everything, but yeah, you could probably do more with other bits as well. So, brilliant. So there's a few resources up here. Like I say, my blog has a few bits of content in regards to this topic. You've got a couple of Microsoft DevOps MS Learn articles, yeah, on how to set this all up, yeah, how to configure it, how to configure streaming. And there's also a video, it's an hour long, on all three features, event grid, log analytics, and Splunk, where we've actually gone into how to set this up. Me and Peter Detender, we both had an hour video just going through the setup of it, triggering, why we do it. It's a nice presentation, so that's a good thing. Yeah, if you want to go away from today and actually look at that, it's still valid. We did this about a year ago, this video, and still nothing's much changed in regards to the setup and everything. So, brilliant. All right, thank you for your time.